So they were missing all of their milestones, like sitting up. I mean, they were a year old. I remember going to a photo shoot and we were taking a picture of them. They were a year old. They couldn't even sit up unassisted. They were still falling over. And so that's kind of when I started thinking, this is weird, when it was time to start walking. They were walking, Landon, which was my smaller of the two, really wasn't even able to walk. He was pulling himself up on stuff, but very stiff-legged, very high on tippy toes. And Parker was able to walk, but it was a short distance, again, really high on the tippy toes. So that's kind of when I was thinking, I don't remember my oldest one having these issues or anything like that. So at their physical, their regular physical, we asked the pediatrician about it, and he said, just kind of in passing, well, we'll wait about 3 more months, and if nothing happens, if they're not putting their heels down, then maybe we'll send them to a neurologist. And I was thinking, well, why would they have to see a neurologist for that? And he said, well, because, sometimes when you have premature babies, there's, neurological things that just haven't fully developed, and the sooner you catch it, the better. He really didn't get into any specifics. He left it very general. But, of course, as a mom, you go home and you find all the legitimate sources, Google and what have you. So after doing a little bit of research, there was a lot of things. I mean, it could be autism, it could be CP, it could be, just a list of things. So that was really when we kind of started to say, well, we need to look into this. We scheduled an appointment. I remember it like it was yesterday. We finally got in. It took like 2 months. We got in with a well-known neurologist in the area. So we went in, and we had both the boys with us, and he did a couple tests on them. And probably about 20 minutes into the session, he just started saying, oh, well, yeah, they... So, typically you'll see CP in twins, people that have multiples, it's more common, and low birth weights, it's more common. And he just kind of started talking about cerebral palsy, but never really, attribute it to them, but just was talking about it. And so I stopped him mid-sentence and I said, wait, so are you just saying that they have symptoms that, are relatable to cerebral palsy, or are you saying that they actually have cerebral palsy? And he said, oh, no, yeah, they definitely, without a doubt, have cerebral palsy. And I didn't really know much about it. I've heard of it before, but I guess kind of what came to mind for me was, like a quadriplegic, somebody sitting in a wheelchair who had contortions in their hands. And so I thought, this is a little crazy, So I really don't think I even paid much attention to what he was saying after that. It was just kind of like, wait, what? I was taken back. And so we got him together. We left. At the time they were not yet 2. So we were walking to the car. So it's still a lot trying to manage the kids. So we didn't, my husband and I didn't really at the time get a chance to discuss anything. We just got them loaded in the car, and he was going to go back to work. And so he said, so there's going to be fine. Everything's going to be fine. And that was kind of when it was like the reality sunk in for me. Like, no, this isn't like the flu. This is an illness that doesn't just go away. This is a big deal. And I still, just talking about it even, it's so real. So I got in the car, and I didn't want to talk to anybody. I didn't want to. I was in a state of mind that literally felt like somebody just told me that my kids had died. It was like just like what? Just heartbroken, confused. Didn't understand. Just all the things you would imagine somebody would go through in that moment. So I got in the car and I was driving home, and I was just bawling, just bawling. And so I called my best friend, and I went over to her house, and I walked in, and everything, I tried to just hold it together when I walked in. I'm usually pretty good at it. And so I walked in and I sat down, and of course they were doing their thing, and I said, so I have to tell you something. And, of course I lost it. And I told her what had happened, and you know, it was the start of 2 days for me that I really wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. You know, there's nothing that can describe the pain and really the sense of loss that I had. You know, I teach fitness. It's something that I do on a regular basis. It's a hobby of mine. It's a pastime. I always envisioned my family, you know, that when all the kids got older, we would be, you know, hiking in Colorado. We would be climbing to the top of Mount Everest. You know, like it's every time I had, you know, thought of what my life was going to be like with my family, it was always very active, very adventurous, very outdoorsy. And it just was like, I mean, just in a second, it was just, those things were completely robbed. You know, I just felt robbed, and just, there was just out of control. There was nothing I can do about it. You know, it's not an issue that goes away. It's not an illness that they have a cure for. There's still a lot of research that hasn't been done on it. So there was nowhere to look. There was nothing to do. I had decided I didn't want to tell my family right away. Number one, because I didn't know, I didn't want to say it. You know, I didn't want to verbalize it because it made it more real. I really didn't want to deal with, you know, everybody, oh, we're so sorry. I didn't want the condolences. I didn't want, and I especially did not want people telling me like, well, I know this person whose sons, uncles, aunt, you know, I didn't want to hear any of that. All I wanted to know about was hope. I just needed hope. I needed something to hang on to because there was just no way that I was going to get through. And so I remember that night, literally the night that I got home that night, put the kids to bed, and I just, good old Google. I got on Google and I was like, you know, just healings. I just started doing, you know, searches, YouTube searches, you know, people being healed of CP, you know, all kinds of things like that. And I started seeing videos just of healings in general. I do remember seeing one of parents talking about their, I think it was daughter, who had severe CP and was completely healed of it. And you know, it's funny because as a Christian, you know, in a moment like that, it's just very easy to fall into the, you know, the doctor said, or the diagnosis is, and completely lose sight of the advantage you have over somebody who's not a Christian. You know, the hope that you do have, and the comforter that you have that other people don't have. I don't know how somebody could get through something like that, or the literal loss of a loved one without having a comforter. That's a scary thought for me. But so I started looking up these videos, and I started to get really hopeful. And at that point, I realized the only way that these boys are going to get healed is through God. That's it. There's nothing that anybody has done as far as medicine or anything like that that can heal this. So it's going to be an act of God. It was in a moment that God gave me the ability to have the faith, because it was a supernatural faith, let me tell you. Anyone who knows me will tell you that I'm very much a realist. And, you know, I'm very structured and calculated, and if A, then B, and there is no in between, and it's black or white, and that's it. So for someone like me to be able to have had the faith that would happen, and there was nothing I could do about it, it was just going to happen, it was definitely a supernatural faith, there's no doubt. And so I began to pray constantly over the boys. I would go in their rooms, I would put them to bed at night, and I would just pace back and forth in their room, back and forth, pacing, praying over them, crying out to God, tears flowing down my face. just nonstop. I mean, every single night when they were napping, I would put them down in the afternoon for a nap, pace the room, pray over them, lay hands on them, pray over them. For me, it was like there was no other way that I could get more, I guess, brokenhearted before the Lord than I was, when that happened. And I guess that maybe for me, that was someplace that I had never been that intimately, in my alone time with God, just that vulnerable. And more than anything else, I would say, I really realized my dependency. So I really look back now, and I wouldn't have changed the situation at all. It's changed my perspective immensely. But it's just been a journey. It really has. So now the boys are 2.5. They turned 2 in January, and they're walking, they're running, they're hitting, they're doing everything that 2.5-year-olds would do. They are vibrant boys, would be an understatement. They're talking. I mean, you would have no idea. From the onset of everything, it was awesome because, when we went in and got the diagnosis, the doctor had said that, we're not sure if they'll ever be able to walk. They'll always need to have some type of care for the rest of their lives. They'll always need some type of care. And now they're running and they're playing and they're jumping and they're, all these things. It's awesome. It's been a life-changing, for sure, a life-changing experience. Jesus healed my boys. There is no other explanation for my boys being in the condition they're in right now other than Jesus healed them.